Hey, welcome, Talent Warriors, to I think this is the 6th episode, but Apple tells us we're not supposed to be numbering our podcast. But this is the Talent War podcast with me, George Randle. And normally I have Tom Lokar, PhD in all things talent, as a co-host. He's a multi-time CHRO, but evidently the variant D has struck his firm. And so he is a challenged HR leader right about now. So I have got something even better. I have the amazing, and yep, we're not on video, and beautiful, talented folks. Her name's Karen Clark, absolutely the best HR leader I have ever worked with. Some people would call her my evil twin, or I'm the evil twin for her. And I wanted to bring her on. This was just perfect timing to bring her on today. And we wanted to talk about getting back to the workplace, vaccinated, not vaccinated, how you do it wrong. So stay tuned as we answer the question, what in the hell do you do about getting people back into the office?
I'm flattered for sure. I'll take it, but I'm honored to be here. This is exciting.
So first of all, you got to tell everybody, you don't have to name the company. Tell them about your role, however you want to describe it, and what you're in the middle of.
Yeah, absolutely. So I lead an HR business partnering and talent acquisition team for a global cybersecurity company. And we have, people in 45 different countries with a lot of different dynamics, right? COVID hits different places at different times and different severities. It's been a challenging 18 months, and like the rest of the world, had to learn as we go on how to manage this.
And I got to come back around to it because I know one of those countries is India. That's got to be killing. They're never coming back to work, are they?
It's so incredibly heartbreaking, right? When you have team members, and not only do we have team members in India, we are expanding and growing in India simultaneously while this is going on. And oh, by the way, just acquired a company that's based in India while this is going on. And so it's been incredibly hard to balance trying to do that expansion, not lose any momentum with that, but simultaneously really take care of your team members there. And we've done that. We've gone above and beyond to take care of team members while they're going through this. And, openly, when you have team members going through what they're going through, my last concern is getting them back to the office. The first concern is keeping them healthy.
Yeah. And, Tom and I talked on an earlier podcast, and I just wrote a blog about this. As I said, in 2008 and a few years after that, having a great CFO after that financial meltdown was everything. And in the blog, I talked about now you've got, you had the pre-pandemic, the pandemic, post-pandemic, you've got the diversity and inclusion, the civil unrest, the blurring of personal and professional lives in social media. And so I said, and I coined it, and I hope it catches on, but I said, this is the era of the CHRO, meaning if you don't have like the best HR team and CHRO that's a true strategic leader, you're screwed.
You are. And as you know, being in HR as long as I have, HR's role is ever evolving. And it's, we're not operational.
What time is it right now? What are we doing today in the HR team?
Exactly. You're absolutely right. But, that's the awesome part of it, right? Because it is our time, and our role is evolving again. And what we do is so impactful. Every day, what we're doing really drives a huge impact to culture of the organization, the productivity and performance of the organization. When we're talking about, and especially in the middle of a pandemic, when we're helping leaders, these are critical times. No one understands how to keep employees engaged when they're working at home and homeschooling and taking care of parents, or whatever all that is. Not being able to travel, not being able to do the things that they've been able to do to, balance their lives and remain healthy. And so I'm not happy we're in a pandemic, but I love the way that our role has evolved and what we're doing right now.
We wrote in the book, and for those of you that don't know, and those that have read the Talent War book, if you look in the very back of it, Karen's name is in there, and for just damn good reason. So I know the company that she happens to be talking about, but we have some certain agreements that some things will and will not be named. But look, I got to be the first person to tell on myself. And that was, even when I heard about COVID, it didn't spook me. And I don't know if that was, remember being in the Army and being in malaria and, war-torn countries. I was like, okay, yeah, so what? It's a pandemic. I didn't think anything. But actually, you and your boss, you guys actually got ahead of this. And I look back and how smart you guys were. What made you think to start getting ahead of this, and how did you get ahead of it?
Being in tune with the workforce. Let me take a step back. I might have been a little bit ahead of you, but I don't know how ahead of you I was, because I remember I was the person that showed up at Dulles International Airport, and I was coming into Austin, and I walked up to the airport and no one was there. And I just was, let's go. And when I walked up, and this is Dulles International, and anyone who's ever traveled there knows that it's always crazy.
You're like, no lines at TSA. I'm golden. This is my lucky day.
There was nobody dropping off, nobody picking up, nobody there. And that was the moment that I thought, and this is early March, I thought, wait, this might be real. What's going on? And so that was my moment. So I did go to Austin. I completed the trip and got back very quickly. And that was the last time I traveled for like a year. But here's the thing. I think that we understood very quickly what people were going through. And we knew the stress that people were under with the unknown. Like, there's this unknown. Are we coming back to the office? When are they going to force us? Everything in the media, social media, you're seeing all these things. Companies are forcing people to come back, whatever. And we knew that our workforce was just outside of trying to balance a whole new life and their job and whatever was going on, again, at home, or just being stuck at home, being stuck in a 400 square foot apartment or whatever that was 24/7. We just knew that this was a stress factor, and we knew it was something that we could address. And so very quickly, within the summer, right after COVID hit, we went in and designated an entire workforce on whether they were going to be fully remote, whether they needed to be in the office, or whether they could be flex. And flex meaning, right, you may be in the office a day or two a week or a day or two a month, right? We would sort that out, but just to really understand what we were going to do going forward. We did it before everyone else. I mean, everyone else was just trying to figure out how people were going to be productive at home and getting the right equipment. And simultaneously, we did it all. I don't know that we knew we were ahead of the rest of the world at that time by doing it, but we were. And of all of the feedback that we've gotten from the employees in many different ways, whether it's just engagement surveys, et cetera, and we have gotten the highest marks about just being in front of it, being transparent, communicating, and letting everyone know what was going on. And in hindsight, it was great.
Great. You guys, it was genius. They say favors the prepared. And it was really amazing. And I'm one of those old crusty individuals. I didn't want to work from home. But I was like, you all kept sending out, okay, let's talk about, well, are they flex or do they need to be in the office? So I would imagine, I got people asking me that now. They're like, well, how do we classify our workers? I'm like, and in my head, I was thinking, because I had seen the example that you guys set forth, I'm like, I'm trying not to say I told you so, but I'm thinking, why weren't you guys so far ahead of this? And I am realizing that you and your team, Karen, were so unique. It was genius. And everybody's seen that now. Did you have to convince the execs that that was a smart thing to do? That's a loaded question. There's going to be a few of them coming.
I know, it's a very loaded question. Yeah. So listen, do we have to convince, and do we continue to have to influence and convince, right, is what I'm saying. So the good thing about that time is that everyone was a little bit at a loss. And so we had leaders they were quick to follow what we were implementing because they were just looking for guidance. And so generally, it was very easy to go through that process with a little just education and guidance. I have to tell you, the struggle that you come into is now, as in certain locations are opening up and you're not masked. And so, they were very sort of collaborative in the early stages because, oh my gosh, we're in a pandemic and nobody knows what to do. Now people are very comfortable, and now there's a lot of opinions about what it should look like now, what the new normal should be, what really works in a workforce. So I think we had less struggle in that time because everyone just came together. versus I think what we're continuing to deal with in 2021, which is very differing opinions.
Well, it drives me nuts. I mean, kudos to the execs that were listening to you and said, oh, hey, and I know that some of it, because I experienced some of it. Hey, HR, what the hell do we do? What do we do? Guide us, lead us. And then all of a sudden, you're the most important thing in the world. Not services, not sales, not R&D. Hey, guess what, HR? You need to lead us. We need to figure this out. Damn, they have some short memories. We deliver, we're strategic, we deliver the value, we do all those things right. And then it's like, okay, you go back in your corner, which, we wrote in the book about. That's what gets people in trouble is when they shove HR in the corner. And we're going to tell you now, we've all got Facebook. We're all epidemiologists. We know exactly what the hell to do. And now you got to be running into the exact opposite now.
At times, yeah. So you have very, very differing opinions about, as I was saying, about what, the new normal will be and when it will be. And that I kind of giggle about because, again, we're not through this. We're getting through this at varying stages based on location, but we're not through this. If you're watching any bit of the news and what's going on, we still got some strides to make. And I think the issue is when things start to normalize, leaders go back to their default, right? How I lead, what I've learned, what I know, this is what works. I've got to go back to what I know. And the issue with that is that's not necessarily going to align with the expectations of the workforce going forward. Our biggest struggle, and I'm sure most HR folks can empathize, is trying to help leaders understand that there are different ways and probably a transition time and the gap between how they feel and how the workforce and the employees feel.
Certainly, I was going to say your next culture and climate survey is going to have a different set of questions on it for sure. You were so diplomatic. I had set that one up. You were so diplomatic and so kind. But I know that there's got to be more than one exec that you just want to slap silly and say, no, it's not over.
You know me too well.
Yeah, exactly. We both know where the bodies are buried for those listeners out there. I'm hoping that the leaders come back around and going, okay, because we're not out of this. Hey, HR, what do you think is the biggest? Because a lot of times execs are really living in a bubble because the minute that the rest of the market in the world returns to maybe a false sense of normalcy or a differing sense of normalcy, now they're like, hey, I've still got my revenue goals. I've still got my product delivery timelines. How is that coming across in your world? And how are you managing not to join AA at the end of every single day? Or did you just give that up altogether?
Yeah. So there are days I'm not quite sure that it shouldn't be in a number of different meetings. Yes, there are always the execs who think, or the leaders that think they know best. And, to the point of, as leaders, right? And you work to understand how to make yourself better and you learn how to make your team better, more productive, high performing. And openly, most leaders will tell you that there's goodness that comes from in-person team building and collaboration. No one's going to really disagree, right, with that. Now, outside of COVID, you do have some generational thought differences from people on that topic. But the issue is that for most of us, there are certain healthcare fields and other ones that it is what it is. They have to be in person. But what COVID taught us is that they can be productive from home. Oh, by the way, more productive from home.
Wow. I wonder why that is.
Here's the thing. It's a double-edged sword, right? Because you're home, you're not commuting, you're not doing all of these things that actually probably, not that commute is great for your mental health, but that audible you're listening to, or, that phone conversation with your family or friends or whatever that is, that helps you either decompress after work or start your day, whatever that looks like, all of a sudden was missing. And we filled all that time in, gym time, commute time, everything with work. So productivity went up. So the argument that productivity, it's factually data proven incorrect. that you have to be in the office to be productive. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't some great engagement. I love to see you face. It's the best.
Oh, Tom and I talked about that. There is a value in breaking bread together and having a cocktail together, those things. Yeah. And so that's what we were talking about. We're trying to figure out how to balance, but man, you got something echoing in my head now. The productivity went up. That means the expectations went up.
Absolutely. And this is what you've got to deal with. So you've got to go through the change management process. You've got to bring people, always lead with the data and the metrics. You've got to bring leaders to understand that, hey, they are productive. And so what are you missing? What we're doing now to bring people forward is we're starting with the why. So now people want to bring everyone back to the office. And look, I don't have a crystal ball that's going to tell me where we are 18 and 24 months. I can only tell you where we are today, right? And the job market is hot and people are nervous. And if you go full bore, you're in here 5 days a week, starting July, August 1, like we're seeing. I hope you're building your TA team fast and furiously to deal with that.
Now, that's another podcast we are going to cover, but you're right. 52%. I think because we were just working on the brochure, and it's 52% of people right now at any given moment are looking for another job.
Yeah. And by the way, the jobs are there, right? That's the other thing. The jobs are there. And so when we're talking to the leaders, we very much have to say, okay, so I understand what you believe is that people need to be in the office, right, to be productive. That's actually not true. So let's talk about why you want them in the office right now. And if we get to the why, right, okay. But if you don't have that why, that really is a business essential why, do you really want to risk 50% attrition? And do you want to do that right now?
So, all right, another loaded question.
Okay.
I'm going to get you into full care and form at some point. Of the percentage of executives you're having that discussion with, how many are listening with the intent to learn on a percentage basis? Because that's got to be your biggest challenge. And that's what, a lot of people listening, when we talk to the HR leaders out there, there's so many people like Tom and I have talked about, and what you and I have talked about, our jobs are always far more than the blocking and tackling, but you have to get that right. But those discussions that change whether people come back to work or not to work, that's not for your ordinary uneducated HRBP or HR person who's doing blocking and tackling. So how are you making it happen? You still have to give me the percentage.
I will do that. I'm going to be fair because I have to tell you, we've made great strides with upgrading our leadership, thanks to some help from you in the organization. And, I'm going to be fair and say, I have to say 70 to 80%, because I have a strong, credible business partnering team. And we have hired some exceptional executives, right? I'm probably in a better place than most, but you still got that 20 to 30% that's walking in going, no, they have to be in here, as I'm banging my head on the wall going, okay, well, all right. Let's see how that's going to work out for you. Let's talk about your goals. What did you sign up for this year? Because if you lose, whatever percentage of your workforce, the roadmap won't happen, the sales won't happen, on and on and on. There's a direct correlation to revenue generation here. So let's bring that back to you. It's almost the 80-20 rule all the time for everything, right? And it is, but we're getting them there. And there's also the value of some, executive level peer pressure and leading and setting the example. The other point is, it may get there. If someone sits here and tells me they know exactly what the workforce is going to look like in 18 months, I'm calling you a liar. Because there's no one that could have told me what it looks like now. There's absolutely where we would end up. And we had some idea that this was going to change the world. But let's be clear, if you're going to be competitive in the talent acquisition market, if you're not leading with flexibility right now, when, oh, by the way, there's still, issues with children at homes, especially in regions, right? And, daycares that collapsed right under COVID and the resources aren't there. And there's just a ton of things that employees are not able to snap their fingers and go back to the life that we had in January of 2020. And so if you don't allow time and flexibility to sort of transition into what that normal is going to be, that's pretty damn naive.
There's a lot of people that are small to medium business HR professionals. Look, you and I, we know if we take the 23andMe DNA test, the dominant gene will be the one that says masochist on the top of it. And we've spent decades in the function. But we've had the benefit of big corporations. And, just by being in the environment, we see both the excellent and the pure crap all in literally 1 hour meetings. And so we've had that exposure. So if you had to coach, if you had HR professionals from smaller firms coming to you, what would you tell them to be paying attention to make sure that, you're communicating the flexibility or you're thinking through this the right way? I mean, what advice would you be giving, some of these people that don't have the benefit of the world that we live in?
There's a couple things. Understand the market around you, right? The talent acquisition market, what's happening where you have people, where you're recruiting. Understand the expectations of that market and get the data. How do you influence leaders? You know this, you and I, right? Bring the data forward. You can't argue with accurate data, right? I mean, that's the point blank. You can't argue with that. The other element is, start with the why. So I don't want to hear that in 2019, what you knew was that being in person, it made you more productive. Did it? Because actually, to my point, right, the productivity went up. So start with the why, the data and the why. And that's going to help you influence that leader. Because in fact, when you start with the why, they'll wrap themselves back around to understand, oh, wait, maybe I don't need that right now, right? So if you current market TA data, attrition data in your industry, what people are saying, what's going on there, and then starting with the why, use data and why, you'll get there.
I love that. Have you guys, I would imagine you have, but I don't want to presume, have you guys started a new culture survey? Because what was it? What was the tool? Culture Amp? Was that the
Culture
tool?
Amp, yeah.
Yeah. Have you guys sent out a survey asking and how much of what the population wants is affecting that? Have you guys done that yet?
We're actually getting ready to do another engagement survey with Culture Amp. So no, we haven't done it through that tool, but we are talking to the organization. So right now, actually what we're doing, we set these remember that when we did this early workplace designation, that was very early on. Now it was smart, but it was early, right? And so what we're doing now is we're looking at it again and we're having the same conversations over again. Now that you know what you know over the past year, is this the right designation? Or can we be more flexible? And again, the why. And as part of that process, we're actually talking to the organization. So we're bringing in groups of leaders. We understand what the workforce wants and partnering with the business partners. So having a good business partnering team, we have our pulse on the needs, wants, and expectations of our workforce. By the way, we don't differ from anyone else. You can look at any survey out there, and what people want right now is flexibility. Meaning, to your point, you were saying, hey, I don't want to work from home. Actually, no, not a lot of people want to work from home 5 days a week or all the time, right? They want flexibility. So they want to say, yeah, you know what? I actually do need that engagement. I do want to see people face to face. But you know what I don't need to do? I don't need to do it Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And that's where we're going to see this really change. So the other conversation is, okay, so let's say you're going to have a flex workforce. How do you make that most impactful and meaningful? So you have to get really strategic about team meetings, why you're bringing them in, what you're working on. All right. And because if you start bringing people in a day or two a week, and they could have done exactly what they did in that office at home without the hour commute and the gas and the whatever you're doing, then you're going to lose them. So make it meaningful. Do something important with that time that you're together. Don't just look at each other over a cube and put your headphones on and get on Zoom calls. I mean, that's just a waste of everything. You're going to throw yourself 5 steps backwards doing that.
I would go. I have the luxury now. We're in the office, but I remember less than a year ago getting Zoom fatigue. I was like, I just want to see another human being. I want to have another bad cup of coffee from the office drip machine. Here's the real hard question. I was on a consulting engagement the other day, and so the guy does want to be flex. He wants to be flexible. So here's the hard part. And I imagine this has got to be an absolute mind bender for everybody. And I just want your take. And I'm not going to say, we're not saying here that this is the right way or the wrong way. But people coming back to the office in non-medical or non-teaching, let's just say non-first responders or whatever. Some of those people that will come back are vaccinated, and some want to come back that are not vaccinated. So you've got vaccinated people who are like, okay, well, if you're inviting the non-vax people into the office, well, I don't want to come back in the office. Now you have a whole nother thing. And he was asking me kind of, how do you handle that? Now, one of the companies was in New York, and it's Manhattan. And they just said they're coming back to the office and they're getting vaccinated. And that's it if they want their job. And I was like, probably not the right approach. He said, that's the end of discussion. I'm like, okay, so much for this consulting engagement. But
Right.
Are you tackling that one too?
Absolutely. So here's the reality of it, right? Look, all of this resonates with me. I am vaccinated, but I have to tell you, it was a tough choice for me. I don't get the flu shot. I don't really take a lot of medicine. I don't like anything in my body that's sort of not natural, right? It's like the one hippie part of my life, right? And so I understand both sides. And this is a US comment, but it's perfectly legal for an employer to mandate vaccinations, right? We know that. We've all explored it. They can do it. So the answer is, yeah, you can do it. But then let's look at the vaccination rates, right? And just like many other topics that we talk about, we're at a 50%. You got 50% that jumped for it, and you got 50% that says, I'm not doing that. Again, do you want to lose 50% of your workforce by mandating vaccines? Because let's be honest, age old, people do not want to be told what to do with their bodies. And I got vaccinated, but I don't want you to tell me I have to get vaccinated, right? This was my choice to do so. So the problem with that is, you're right. You've got people that, want to come in, but they don't want to be exposed. And you've got these very differing views. And that is why, because we're dealing with that right now. And the Delta variant and the things that are going on are making this much more complex in the moment. But what we did was, as we're re-looking at workplace designations, and we are planning on bringing people back into the office, right? Starting in September, we've got some pilot groups going on in different offices where it's safest around the globe. As we're going through this, we're just saying everyone's flex through the end of the year, point blank. And what that means actually is, we're going to allow you to make your decision at least through the end of the year for this very reason. If you want to go and take that approach, get ready to backfill the other 50% of your workforce with vaccinated people. And by the way, I don't know anybody who really wants to do that cost and less of productivity and ramp, but if that's what your choice is, go right ahead and do that. I'm not sure that's a good business decision to do. And that's what I was saying. I think people have different thoughts about where we are. We're not through this. Look, it's getting better. No one can say it's not getting better on average, but we've got some time and we've got some work. So, what you'll learn is, create the environment, make it safe to come back, have flex in place. If people are really adamant that they don't want to be exposed, we're going to give them some time, and we're going to kind of see how this plays out and just ensure that, we do have a safe environment. But there's no other answer. Any other answer, mandating anything. And you and I think a lot alike about things, but this is where I would say, if you don't err on the side of flexibility for at least the next 6 months, and I might change that answer in 6 months, because again, I'm learning my way through it. Look, if you want to have a fully vaccinated workforce, start recruiting now, because you're going to lose your people, right?
You can't ask a candidate, are you up to date on vaccinations? It's crazy. I don't argue about whether somebody should or whether somebody shouldn't. I mean, it scares me when, the same people who gave us the 1040 easy tax form saying it was easy have mandated a vaccine. So I am the eternal. Well, if you're in HR, you have to be a skeptic, to be quite honest with you.
Isn't that why we bonded over our career? Because we're the subjects.
Skeptic is our podcast word for crusty and non-trusting HR people.
I think our bond is built on skepticism, actually.
And I wouldn't do anything that were to jeopardize, and we won't get into the war stories about crazy execs, but I'd just like you to weigh in on, you have a colleague that's named Emily, who we know is the world's most perfectly postured L&D person on the face of the planet. And so you can tell her to listen to this podcast that I am openly mocking her. She's terrific and she's wonderful. Have you seen her? Well, I mean, she may have been just too busy, but now having to lead remotely, that's a new set of skills we're having to teach leaders, how to manage, how to connect, how to build relationships remotely. So even if you're going to be flex, what are you talking to managers about? What are the big things that, let me rephrase this a different way. For everybody that's listening, there's nobody I want whispering or yelling in my ear more than Karen, to make sure that A, I'm not in jail, B, I'm not sued, and C, I get great results. Those aren't necessarily in order. But you're the voice in a lot of people's ears, and a lot of people have got to be challenged trying to lead people. You know, how are you helping executives? How are you helping managers? What advice are you giving to kind of lead through this craziness?
There's a couple things. You have to look at if someone's working remotely, and especially a newly, like they're trying to sort out their lives. It's new to them as well. Oh, my kid's sitting here with a laptop trying to get connected to school, and that's not working. And, I have to tell you, thank goodness my kids are older, because I would have not survived this past year, not without
me too.
AA meetings very quickly. There's a few things, which is, and I had to do this myself. Does it need to be 9 to 5? Or let's talk about that. What's going on in your life? And can you get the job done in a 24-hour period? I don't really care what the hours are. And this doesn't work for everyone, right? There are definitely roles that it matters. You're on call, your tech support, your what have you, and you just have to be on a certain hours. And that's that. But other than that, if you're talking about supporting employees, figure out how to get the job done in the environment. And that's COVID or anything else that you're dealing with, right? But outside of that, right? So I want you to take an empathetic approach. I want you to be a leader. I want you to help people solve the problem, and each problem may be different. Put that aside. You've done that. Manage performance. It's like this. It's nothing different, right? Manage performance. So and this is the problem.
You heard it here, folks. It's about performance and results.
Right. So if somebody's not performing, I don't care if they are in my corporate office or at their home or at their sister's house, in Oklahoma. I don't care where you are. Are you doing your job? Are you meeting your objectives? And if so, grand. And if not, you got to go. It's that simple. And I don't mean to be cold about it, but it's no different than if someone comes forward and says, I need an accommodation. Great. You need an accommodation that's going to help you perform in your role. So if we give you the accommodation and you perform, that's grand. If we do and you don't perform, then it doesn't work, right? You have to be able to perform the essential duties of the role, whether in any circumstance, to stay in the role. And so there's the soft side that says, help them figure out how to do that. And then I'm going to be really firm and say, if they're not doing it, we have a process for that. The biggest struggle that we have is that leaders do not manage performance in a timely way, and they are not proactive. And then all of a sudden I get a call, I want to fire this guy. Okay, well, great. But what have you done thus far? And the answer is nothing. So if you have leaders who manage performance poorly and they don't make that a part of their everyday life, well, that's a whole different podcast probably as well.
We had this list of topics, but things kept kind of popping up. So this was a great one. But you have to give me 4 answers. Give me the top 2 reasons why you stay and thrive and kick ass and take names in HR. And 2 reasons that, we've both at times in HR been borderline problem drinkers. So what are the top 2 reasons that you stay, and what are the top 2 things in HR that drive you crazy?
Look, the first is, and there's no doubt that I am biased. Why do I stay in HR? You can choose to have a role that is impactful in one function or one region, or you can choose to be great like us, right? And impact everything, right? And we don't get the credit. But I have to tell you, if we all stopped working one day, be in a world of hurt, right? And we know that. And by the way, we've gained confidence in who we are and what we do because we do impact the business on a day-to-day basis. The other one, I will tell you, I've had a wonderful career, right? And I've been given opportunities not to just grow in HR. By the way, HR is a component of my role. I am a business partner. I am a problem solver. And I've had just such a luxurious career where I've been able to touch everything. I've been in government contracting. I've been in commercial organizations. I have been in product and services solutions. And now I am around the globe. And if you are like me, bored easily, right, and constantly need to be entertained, then this is the role for you. All right. The flip side of that, which I'll get into, which is what makes us drink. I am one that admires people and have expectations of leaders that they're always open to changing their views or thoughts. So someone who is stuck in their views without validation or justification is not trying to constantly improve themselves as a leader and openly just not emotionally intelligent enough to work with me. Just openly. That drives me to drink.
Those are some of the dead bodies we referred to earlier in the podcast.
My boss, who I love, but my coaching is to lead with grace. That's my and he goes, okay, lead with grace, right? So I can't tell you that you're stupid, and that's okay. That doesn't mean the thought doesn't cross my mind at times. Honestly, George, that's really what drives me to drink. If you're not striving to be where I am and improve yourself and improve the organization and do what's right, other than that, look, I can deal with every changing dynamic industry thing you throw at me, acquisition, whatever environment, right? I can stabilize it. I can be a part of it. If nothing else, if you've been in HR as long as I've been in and you've been successful, you're on the top of the resilience, right, ladder. And that is really, outside of being principled. So, look, integrity is huge to me. If integrity is an issue, you don't get my time if I question your integrity. But outside of that, just look, you need to be better if you're closed-minded, and I don't, and you'll know that because I'll tell you.
So, one of the things that we talked about in the book, and this is a long way around the barn to my next question, is we posed on a podcast, and I've said it on other podcasts that I was invited to, is what if you had Bruce Arians, who, he coached Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They beat my Chiefs, which is killing me. Or Andy Reid, who coached the Kansas City Chiefs. And they said, you know what, we're going to focus on the offense and we're going to focus on the defense and to hell with special teams. I'm like, who would ever think that a coach would think that and then expect to get to the Super Bowl? But there are tons of executives who look at HR, talent acquisition, total rewards, leadership development as the special teams. And they're like, yeah, not too worried about that. If I have my offense and my defense, fine, I'm good. So, what we wrote in the book, you're in the book about HR being strategic, but you've given us, lead with data, lead with the why. What would you be telling executives out there? And, not just C-suite, but the business executives of how to improve outside of hiring A players like you onto the team. That's a game changer. But other than that, what advice would you be given to executives after 2 decades of being in the function? And by the way, I would add psychologist and therapist to your job description. I know that this is ad-libbing a little bit. I told you it'd happen. But everybody goes either to a barber or a hairdresser. They know more about your personal stuff than anybody else does. And I'm like, if you have good HR and good TA, they're like the people that do your hair. They know more about your teams than anything else. Which is why I wanted to ask you, if you were going to advise executives and say, you know what, here's what you need to do to be getting the best out of your HR team and getting the best advice or anything that you want to tell executives, what would you say?
Leaders have to understand what it is to work with good HR professionals and what can come of that. And what I've learned over my career, right, my approach may be different, but there's a credibility component that you have to build in any partnership. So to your point, right? You went to the hairdresser and they did your hair right. And you walked out and you look great and you're like, all right, I'm always going back there. You get that same experience with the right HR person. And what I've learned is when you have leaders that you're working with that have had prior relationships with strong HR, they're on it. They know what they want and they need these things and great. When you don't, it actually falls on the HR person, unfortunately, to sort of build that credibility. And once you do, usually it's not a problem. I think you and I know this. We never have a problem getting to the table, right? Unless you've got a leader who doesn't want you there for a reason, which is a red flag. And we have some of those. So when a leader does
Tom
not...
and I happen to identify that person by a code name on an earlier podcast.
Right. Exactly. I don't want to oversimplify this, but I have leaders I work with that call me kind of just to chat and bounce things off of me now, right? And I've built these relationships and, hey, I was just thinking, and they're not afraid to be transparent, tell me what's going on. How much trouble will I get into if I do blank? And then I know that, okay, we've got this relationship, right? Because they're telling me they're getting ready to do something stupid. And I love those calls because that means I've got a partnership. And I have some great partnerships like that. But it is, unfortunately, if a leader has never worked with a strong HR partner, we've got to get in there and show them what that looks like. And it's come to the table, understand the business. How do we do that? Understand their business. Get in there, understand their constraints, their opportunities, right? Where they're struggling, whether it be financial or market or product maturity, whatever that is. Figure out the struggle and then figure out how you're going to help them and where you can influence and where you can knock down. The fastest way to build some credibility in a partnership, knock down the roadblock for them, right? Knock it down. All of a sudden, oh my God, that's my best friend. And I want her on every call that I have because she's going to go, and this is maybe a little bit of my personality as well, but she's going to go knock. I don't know if that will ever change. It's an unfortunate part of being part of HR, but if you know what you're doing, it's an easy thing to overcome.
Yeah, I thought so. And, we talked about that in TA and I was like, I remember, of course, I came in a little bit brash and I remember talking to this one manager. He's like, I want you to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And I remember talking to him and I said, well, when you roll out the next line of code, can I review it? He says, well, you don't know a damn thing about engineering. I said, you don't know a damn thing about talent acquisition, but it doesn't keep you from telling me how to do my job. I said, you know what I want you to do is tell me what you want. I'm going to ask you why, dig into it. Then I want you to go away, show up in an interview, give me thumbs up, thumbs down. The rest of the stuff, stay out of the way. And he was like, I've never seen it work that way. I'm like, well, why don't we give it a try and see how that works out? And by all means, do not negotiate compensation. Please, God, if you're a manager, stay out of that. Let talented people work on your behalf for that. We do have some interesting topics coming up, and there's going to be one that we talk about, and I think we're doing a series on it, which we are going to get you, and there's 2 or 3 other people. I'll give you their names. I don't want to reveal them yet till we lock them down. You'll know who they are. But we're going to talk about a topic coming up that's going to be near and dear to your heart, which is female executives and the power to ask for what you want. Not what you deserve, not what you need, what you want. And so I can't wait to get your take on that. Our goal is to talk about things that are real HR and solving the problems. And there's nobody better. And I can't thank you enough for coming on and having a few laughs.
I hope to be invited again.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And hopefully you're here doing it live soon. I'm going to give you the parting shot before I do the outro. The parting shot, anything you want to convey, reference HR, good, bad, ugly, indifferent, you're going to get the final word.
You talk about it a lot in your book, and we kind of talked about it here. If you are a business leader and you don't have or don't utilize a strong HR partner, shame on you, right? You are impacting your business. And if you are an HR leader who hasn't earned credibility, I may have to question what you're doing in your role. Do you really care about it? So, the partnerships are so they really change the game if you have the right partnership. And I think that is the only advice that I would leave as a parting shot is don't waste that opportunity, because I've seen it change the bottom line.
Yeah. And not to stroke our own egos. I think, us building the relationship we did, yeah, it absolutely changed the bottom line. I mean, we were like it in the 30s, 40s of attrition. And then between the two of us, we figured out how to tackle it in short order. Well, I can't thank you enough. This has been awesome. Yes, absolutely. You're coming back. The only thing you have to do to come back is you get to pick the controversial topic, or maybe we'll flip. We're going to flip seats and you're going to take the main mic and you get to ask questions. We will do it that way.
Great.
But, oh my God, it's just so looking forward, and I'm so glad. Thank you for making the time, and for all the talent warriors out there, thank you very, very much for listening. You can find this wherever you find podcasts. Can't thank you enough for listening. If you want to get better at business, if you want to get better at talent, if you want to get better at HR, there is no other group you need to be listening to, and we thank you kindly. Please leave a review. Let us know how things are going. And with that, we are out. And thank you for listening to the Talent War podcast, where we discuss all things talent, focusing on having a true talent mindset, which is the core belief the only true competitive advantage you can hope to achieve and maintain is your talent. Join us for the next episode of the Talent War podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you download your podcasts. If you like what you heard, subscribe, and please leave us a kind review. Do connect with Mr. Dr. Tom Lokar and myself, George Randle, on the Talent War Group's LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram account. And by all means, send your comments, inquiries, and any ideas for controversial talent, HR-related topics to media@talentwargroup.com. The Talent War podcast is brought to you by the Talent War Group, an executive search and advisory firm with services like talent acquisition, leadership development, seminars, executive coaching. Basically, we work with you to bring talent solutions to business problems. And to get started, visit us at talentwargroup.com.